zero, and liftoff.
My name is Creighton Moxie. I'm a 25-year-old entrepreneur, and I have a background in marketing, business consultancy, and business plan development. And today, what I want to do is, I want to bring someone on the show that will provide value and be able to not just empower people, but also be able to share practical ideas on how we achieve this level of empowerment. And the person with me I have on the show today is none other than Mr. Pedro Rolle. And Mr. Rolle is a businessman that was born in Exuma. Exuma, born and raised, the person of the soil. He obtained his bachelor's degree from Fisk University in economics and accounting. Mr. Rolle would then return home to provide value to the public education system as a math and accounting teacher. He has management level experience in real estate, import/investment, and foreign exchange. And Mr. Rolle has been the Chamber of Commerce president since 2012. And during these times, he's fought vigorously for the economic empowerment of Exuma. Mr. Rolle's passions are enjoying nature, sports, and civic involvement. He is married to Dr. Cheryl Rolle, and they have a son, Pete, and daughter, Maisha. Yes, I hope I pronounced that right.
That's it.
Yeah, so, okay, perfect. So, Mr. Rolle, we were talking a little bit, and you were starting to share with me about your educational experience, right? And before I jump into some of the main questions I wanted to ask you, I feel that it's very important for me to find out, how was your experience at Fisk University in the 70s?
Well, it was eye-opening. Consider this, right? So, I grew up in Exuma. In those days, when you got to a certain age, you either went out to be a farmer and get some trade or whatever, because there was no high school here. That's before we had Ellen Copley High School.
Yes, sir.
So, I ended up going to Nassau to attend St. Augustine's College to do my high school. So with that background, I can consider this. And let me put a plug here in your answer, because your foundation is so important to what happens.
Yes, sir.
And so I attended the Montaukson All-Age School, did my BJCs there, whatever. And a testament to how good an educational system that we were privy to, without all of the access to modern stuff. I passed all of my BJCs and I went to St. Augustine's, and on the basis of those qualifications, they determined what grade you went into, right? So, I graduated from St. Augustine's at 15 because when I went to Nassau, they put me in, it used to be, you're too young to know this, right? They were not grades, they were like Form 1, Form 2, Form 3.
I heard about it.
Okay, right. So now, Form 4 would be like grade 10. I'm sorry, grade 11. So
yes,
I only went there for 2 years because they credited me with the other 2 years of high school. And I knew in many cases, I think it was a disservice. It would have been better for me had I gone a year,
Yeah, so just for natural development.
And foundation. So
yes,
without all of that, I went there. And then after that, I went to Fisk. And Nashville is a place that's in the deep south.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes.
Coming from the Bahamas, we were not mindful of prejudices and all those kinds of things.
Yes, sir.
That was not something that we were exposed to. I grew up in a black community. I grew up in a country that, for the most part, we see black leadership and all those kinds of things.
Yes, sir.
And so I was not exposed to overt racism.
Yes, sir.
Right? And my first experience, you asked me how was the experience? But the first inclination of racism was when me and my friends from the Bahamas, we went out to Pizza Hut, never forget it, and we ordered, and the people came all around us and they were eating and stuff, and we weren't getting any food, any pizza, and it occurred to us probably an hour later that we were not getting any. So these kinds of things open your eyes to what's happening in the real world.
Yes, sir.
So it was an eye-opening experience.
I
Culturally, that is.
It's so crazy that you point that out, right? I didn't mention this to you prior. I went to boarding school in Tennessee, in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Chattanooga? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I went to the Macaulay School in Chattanooga, Tennessee, right? But prior to going there, I went to a school called Hamilton Heights.
Mhm.
Got a basketball scholarship there. Ended up attending, right? And like you're saying, right, we live in the Bahamas, we live in a nation full of black people, right, so we see black faces, we don't really experience overt racism. I would say that we experience racism in a lot of other ways, certainly economic and other factors of that sort.
And we should talk about that.
Yes, sir.
Kind of thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I feel like those are big things, but we never really experience it overtly per se, like someone just coming to you and saying certain things.
Right.
And when I was at school in Chattanooga, Tennessee, we went up into the mountains, Saudi Daisy Mountains and Lookout Mountain.
Right.
You know, Martin Luther King talked about Lookout Mountain in his speech, right?
Yeah.
We went up there to play a basketball game, and the whole student section, they were just chanting, you know, N-word, 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 and no one was saying anything. The school principal was right there. He was pretty much that's just it. That's the way life is.
Right.
So I think that really opened my eyes up a lot, and I think it's good for every Bahamian to get exposure, and every person to get exposure to other cultures,
Right.
so that you kind of understand a lot of the things that are going on around you, or you'll be kind of blind to it.
Certainly, I mean, it's a part of your growth.
Yes, sir.
Right? It's a negative in terms of what have you, but it allows you to process so many other things that will come that will enter your life.
Yes, sir.
You know, so that was, but that experience though, being in the South and schooling in the South, that allowed me to reflect on who we are as a people, and not to take, especially the Bahamas, not to take the Bahamas for granted. And it said to me, as a black nation, man, it opened your eyes to the possibilities that we can form a
Yes,
nation
sir.
that is intrinsically ours,
Yes,
with
sir.
our values, that highlights that, you know, we are not some inferior being. And so that's why it's important for us to take ownership of our own country.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And it starts at, and so living in Exuma, we must take ownership of Exuma.
Yes, sir.
Right? Because that's how we take ownership of the Bahamas.
I think you're touching on some very powerful points right here. I just want to point out for people who may not know, Fisk University is actually the oldest educational institution in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes.
It's a HBCU, so that's a historical black college and university. And I just want to point out that information. They're actually ranked the 6th top HBCU right now. And you know it's crazy, right? Even when I went to high school in the U.S., I didn't really know about the whole HBCU system or understand the college systems now, right? I ended up attending LSU, which is considered PWI, Public White Institution. But I really wish that I attended a HBCU.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I'm so, initially, I know, because I have friends who went to other schools and what have you, the big name schools. I would not trade my experience being at an HBCU. I do not wish that I went to any other school, because while I was at Fisk, we did this, not those things. So for 2 years, they had this award for the best economic students and what have you, right? And they were trying to do is from all schools, they were trying to push minorities into to be economic majors and to do PhDs in economics.
Yes, sir.
Now it was a program for Americans. For 2 years they didn't realize I wasn't an American,
Yes.
but I benefited from going.
Yes, sir.
And in those 2 years, 1 year we went to we did an whole summer exchange program at Yale University, right? And which was an eye-opening experience for me.
Yes, sir.
Right? And Northwestern in Chicago. So in both of these things, these are these huge white institutions with, I couldn't believe, first of all, the size of the institutions.
Yes, sir.
Right? And the facilities that they had. And when I compared their cafeteria and all that with ours, it was like, but yet, I think the culture and the foundation that I got at Fisk, I could not have gotten at those schools.
Agreed.
Right? And the care and attention, because it was with the same degree of particularity that my professors, they came and they would deal with me. I would have been not even a face in the crowd at Yale.
Exactly.
I would have been a number.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Not even a face.
Yes, sir.
So I could get better attention to the challenges that I was facing, because I was at Fisk University.
Yes, sir.
So my advice is to our Bahamians, if you get an opportunity, if you have a choice,
Yes, sir.
right? Don't be deceived by the name on the school. My support at HBCU, I think that you won't forget, you won't regret it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I love that. I love that. If I could do it all over again, even if I decide, I mean, I'm always continuing my education because I'm trying to learn and read a lot of books, right? But even if I could go back, I want to go to HBCU.
Right. Yeah, no, man, I think it's worth it. At the end of the day, I think you would feel rewarded
Yes, sir.
for the experience.
Yes, sir.
You
Yes,
see?
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I love that. I love that. I love that. So, Mr. Rolle, you kind of touched on one of the questions I was about to ask you too. I was going to ask, what made you decide to become an economics and accounting major? Was it that program, or what made you decide to?
No, and this goes back to foundation again. Listen, at the Von Thompson all-age school, I had a teacher, and it's amazing how teachers kind of shape your worldview,
For sure.
even in things you don't even understand.
Yes, sir.
So back in those days now, the choices that you have in terms of what you wanted to be in life, what all that today you could be. I mean, the avenues are endless.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, so you're either gonna be something like a police or a teacher, an accountant, a lawyer, and if you're lucky, a doctor, those kind of stuff.
Yes, sir.
We lacked on the island the sciences, so we didn't have science teachers. So I never did physics and chemistry in Exuma.
Yes, sir.
And that's why when I went to high school in Nassau, and because I was in my last 2 years, it was too late for me now I could not keep up. So I ended up in the business stream.
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Right. So, but my teacher always said to me, "You're going to be an accountant." I didn't know what all that entailed, right? But because I had, I think, an aptitude for numbers, you
Yes,
see,
sir.
so they think, because you're good
Naturally.
at math, and you're going to be an accountant.
Yes, sir.
And so I ended up in that stream. I think I was convinced of it. I had the confidence to do it because
Yes,
I
sir.
was good at it.
And then your natural abilities aligned.
Right. And so when I ran off the fist, I had to, for me, it was natural for me to be in the business field and not the science field because I didn't have the real foundation,
Yes, sir.
right? Which was fine because I think I did well
You-
in
I
that
would say
aspect.
you did very well, and I think it's crazy that a lot of our successful business people that I noticed in the Bahamas, they studied similar things,
Yeah.
and it's just so amazing to me that during the time periods we look back at, people were thinking study these things, economics, like.
Right.
Economics people still do very good in life, and
Yeah.
I feel like once you understand economics, you kind of understand how the world operates. That translates to business.
Right. Because it's a field that I I think it's when I went to this our economics class, I think we may have had 30 people in our class who started out, but only 10 of us graduated.
Yes, sir.
Because they all changed like business administration,
Yes,
right,
sir.
which was a more generalized field,
Exactly.
less complicated and less analytical.
Yes, sir.
But I loved it. I mean, I tell the story one time. I was doing all these. I had this math teacher because we had to do a certain amount of math, and then it hit me that my 3 years in, I'm doing all these advanced calculus and stuff, and it's hard stuff. And I look around one day, and the only people in the class are people who are majoring in mathematics,
Yes, sir.
or who want to be like go into
Send a spaceship.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I said, this is killing me. So I after that, for my last, I did no more because it wasn't required. It
Yes,
was
sir.
just, I don't know. I was just doing it. I think because the professor continued to like say, "Come and do," you know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But economics, I think, challenges you,
For sure.
right?
I would say that.
It does, and I think it's exciting. And once you complete it, man, you feel good.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And it gives you the ability to analyze, I think, to basic, even though, generally speaking, the macroeconomics have to deal with the economy and all that.
Yes, sir.
But even on a personal level, right, the microeconomic principles still apply.
Yes, sir.
You see, so you apply them, and I think it assists you in making good, basic decisions, even as an entrepreneur.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Basic things like supply and demand.
Yeah.
Like all these things you're able to understand, like why rent is the price it is, all kind of stuff.
Right. And then it also, like there are opportunities that come, or there are people come to you sometimes with opportunities to say, well, invest in this, do this, right? And then analytically, you take a look at it and says, okay, this is the market environment, and almost intuitively that won't work.
Yes, sir.
But the other person that they say, "Wow, this is a good idea. I like this." So and it may be a good idea, but ain't a good idea for you.
Exactly.
And that's what business is, right? Ensuring that it is something that would work where you are.
Exactly.
It may be a good idea for Nassau, that's got 300,000 people
Yes,
or something.
And that critical mass is supplied.
Right. And that's the only thing that allows it to succeed. But in an economy such as ours, we need to understand what works for us.
Yes, sir.
Right.
I think that's a very important statement you made just now.
Yeah.
What works for us? What can we produce economic value from? What are the spin-offs from that? Like, very, very, very important. Very important. So, Mr. Rolle, I just want you to share for people who may not know, what is the role of the Exuma Chamber of Commerce?
And I can give you the answer that I suppose if you went on the Bahamas Chamber's website, you'd see all these things.
So I want your answer.
But again, see, when the chamber, that's why the chamber, I think, experienced challenges in the past, because we are a part of what we call the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce, and they have this critical mass in Nassau. They can do all of these things, and they can charge these fees and all that. We were doing that, and it discourages people, because now people locally get the impression that the Chamber of Commerce is for the bigger businesses,
Exactly.
like Sanos may benefit from it, or even Grand Isle may benefit from it. But if you are the mom and pop shop in Steventon, like, why would you want to be a part?
Yes, sir.
But the reality is, the Exuma Chamber of Commerce, its objective and its purpose is to take because we are an economy of small businesses.
Yes, sir.
Right? So there's no sense in having a chamber for 2 or 3 companies.
Doesn't make sense.
So the idea is, how do we take all of these small businesses now, bring them together so that they can have one big voice? So the chamber, the role of the chamber is to collect all of the voices, right? The business voices of the island.
Yes, sir.
Bring them together. So now when we speak as a big voice.
Yes,
So
sir.
now together we are as big as super value.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's it, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
when we bring our voice to the table, we can say, listen, man, this is the voice of Exuma. This ain't the voice of Exuma Market, right? Or so this is the voice of Exuma.
Yes,
So
sir.
this is how we feel. This is what we think is best for us. And when we have these challenges, and I'll tell you, people don't know the representation or the input or the influence that something that the chamber has. Because now what happens is, when government makes decisions, we join our voice with the voice in Nassau, and we have these collective things. And I have seen, empirically, government they changed their position on things simply because the chamber brought. Let me give you an example, right? When the Christie administration were introducing VAT to the Bahamas, people don't know that the Christie, they had already agreed what the Parliament voted on it, everything, that VAT was going to be 15%.
Wow.
100% agreed.
Yes, sir.
The chamber, the Bahamas chamber, right, we got together, and we got in professional people from all Australia and what have you, who had gone through it.
Yes, sir.
And it cost the chamber $400,000, of which the government did not put in a single dime.
Wow.
$400,000 to put together a study, right, with data showing the implication on the overall economy. What would happen if VAT is at 15%, as opposed to what would happen if VAT is at half of that, 7.5%.
Yes, sir.
And so even though the government is being seduced by thinking that they're going to get all of this revenue, the chamber was able to bring in studies to show that the increase in VAT would reduce productivity and
Yes,
output,
sir.
and so your taxes would go down.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But at this level, now you are achieving what you wanted to achieve.
Yes,
right?
sir.
So I'm saying that to say that the chamber, there's no public voting on it, but the administration accepted the report, and they agreed to have the VAT at 7.5%.
That's powerful. That's
And
powerful.
I'm saying that to say that's the voice of the collective,
Yes, sir.
business community.
Yes, sir. And I think a lot of the stuff you said made sense too. Like, one of the basic economic principles, if you have a free market, you'll have more trade, so it produces more and stuff like that. That VAT actually became a barrier based on the percentage they put it at. So it had to be adjusted.
Right.
And I also would ask, were you reimbursed for that, the chamber? Was the chamber?
Not a dime.
No? But that should be the job of the government, so I would think
Yes,
that.
but the government's position was, we have made a decision,
Yes.
right? This will prove to us that our decision is wrong.
Yes, sir.
And don't now. It's not some altruistic thing where the chamber says we're going to do this just because we love the Bahamas.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let's bear in mind that the business community that put up the money for that study, they benefited greatly by not having to pay that additional.
Yes, sir. For sure.
So they got the money back.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Right?
sir.
So I mean, just to put it
Okay,
out
so
there.
that makes sense. I
Yeah,
understand that. So, Mr. Rolle, I want to jump into another segment right now, right? So, what I want to talk about is, now, me coming here, right? I'm not originally from Exuma, but I've been to Exuma about 5 times. This is my 5th time. And after the first time, I was trying to find a way to move here. And Mr. Rolle, I'll break it down to you. I saw so much economic potential in Exuma, and I just felt that there's so much opportunities to tap into once you had the mind to be able to figure out certain things. So I want to ask you, right? What are some things you feel are needed for Exuma to be able to realize its full economic potential? Because I've read a lot of your articles and you pointed out a plethora of things, right? But one of the things you talked about is that it's always this consistent theme that Exuma is on the verge, Exuma is about to do this. But then what is needed to take Exuma over to and reach its full potential?
Well, a couple of things, and I get criticized for, I guess, being repetitive. Some folks say I'm singing the same song, but just a different stanza, and it's true.
Yes, sir.
Right? Because the thing that's important to move us hasn't changed.
Yes, sir.
So I mean, if it hasn't changed, why move from? If this is like if you need air to breathe, then we preach we need air to breathe until we don't need air to breathe.
Exactly, right? and that's the facts. So you would
right?
repeat the facts.
So my thing is, I mean, see, we are not going to I think Exuma is not going to advance to reach its potential.
Yes, sir.
See, I'm a chamber president, and we have like what we call the Family Island Chambers of Commerce, right?
Yes, sir.
And Exuma, people in the other islands, for some reason, they think that we are, along with, I think, Luther, that we are accepted, that we are booming and all that.
Yes, sir.
I'm sitting in Exuma and I'm saying we are not booming.
Yes, sir.
Right? In relative terms, okay, we may be doing better than Cat Island or Long Island, and Long Island is always complaining with the chamber that Exuma seems to be getting the best of everything. As a matter of fact, in our last meeting, the Long Island Chamber president said, well, Exuma is getting an airport. If they could take Exuma's airport and take it to Long Island, they'll be very happy. They'll determine everything.
But from a logical sense, the airport makes more sense in Exuma.
And we tell them that.
Yes,
and so we need to be reasonable too in terms of the expectations and the ability of the government to do certain things. And so my thing is, Exuma should be the hub.
Yes, sir. Right? Definitely.
And we should have what I call, commuter airlines that go from Exuma to Long Island, right? And so it does not happen Long Island's. I fly to the States. You went to school in Chattanooga. My daughter went to school in Chattanooga. As an Adventist college called Southern University, right?
Yes, sir.
So, and when we fly there, you know what we did? We flew to Atlanta. And we took a commuter airline from Atlanta to Chattanooga.
Yes, sir. That's what I did on my first trip there too.
Or to Huntsville.
Yes,
but the reality is, there's no reason to put another Atlanta airport in Chattanooga.
No, sir.
To what end? It's too expensive. So the cost, without any airlines or anything, just to put an international airport in an area. Look at what you're going to have to do. Now you've got to put customs offices there, immigration offices there, and all this kind of stuff, right? For what? For maybe 20 people a week?
Yes, sir.
It doesn't make sense.
Illogical.
Right.
Illogical.
So, in order for Exuma to really reach its potential, there are some infrastructural things that needs to happen, right? And I believe that even before a dime is spent, Exumians need to be mindful of how blessed we are and what we have in Exuma. You say you came to Exuma and you fell in love with it. I mean, I call this paradise because I think the potential in Exuma. Like, I don't want to live anywhere
Yeah, sir.
I don't want to live in Nassau.
I know.
I mean, I have no desire to want to live in
Yes,
Nassau.
sir.
And the reason I don't want to do it is because I think that the Nassau is becoming increasingly saturated in terms of entrepreneurial opportunities.
Yes, sir.
In order for the Bahamas to really reach its potential, Exuma and Eleuthera and Abaco is going to have to do it.
Yes, sir.
Right? I mean, that's where the potential for maximum growth comes from in these islands.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, so invest there in the emerging economies. You learn at school, right? You must go where the emerging.
That's your greatest
Yeah,
potential.
don't go in declining economies. That's like wanting to invest. If you have money to invest, not being disrespectful, I don't want to invest in the Black Belt areas. I don't want to invest in Baytown.
Yes, sir.
If I want greatest return, if I invest in Baytown, it's going to be for social reasons,
Yes,
not for economic reasons.
Exactly.
So if you are a young person who are interested in economic progression, then Exuma is a place that's an emerging economy, right? So
Yes, sir.
put it there, it'll come, because this is where the growth will occur. And so as a people, we need then to look at the opportunities. Like we have to study, okay, they're expanding the airports and all those, along with that, other opportunities. So what our mindset first must be, before they fix the road, before they put in the phone, before they do all these things, how do I position myself then to take advantage of the things that will come?
Yes, sir.
What are the things that interest me, right? What am I good at? And if I'm a young engineer, that's what I'm going to do.
Yes, sir.
Right? Because I know that in a year or two, I can be positioned now to take advantage of it, right? So now more airlines will come, more business will come. Maybe there's a piece of property on the airport road there that people in Nassau bought 20 years ago. Maybe I could make an offer and invest in that. I don't see it right now, right? But you will know that on the way to the airport, you can't lose.
Yes, sir. Not
Right?
at all. Not at all.
I don't see how you're going to lose because they will increasingly become commercial things. It's good to be near the airport,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
You may not be able to afford a thing in the airport terminal because only so many people can do it, but then you get the next best thing.
Exactly.
So you get the spin-offs, right?
Exactly.
So I think we need to, young people in Exuma need to take advantage, or business people I should say, take advantage of the potential that exists. Not, and we make money on potential, you know.
Yes, sir.
If we wait until it becomes a reality, then it becomes expensive and only the rich take advantage. So it's the
Exactly.
potential. So that's why I'm saying, go to the emerging, right? Look at see the potential, and that's where you go.
Exactly. Mr. Rolle, I think that's a great business principle you just pointed out just now, right?
Yeah.
Because even if you look at companies, right, startups, for
Yeah.
example, Facebook, right? The person who invested in Facebook when it was initially started, they made way more money than someone who's investing right now because they got in early
There you
when
go.
it was emerging.
The emerging.
And that's when you win, when you get in early. And that's pretty much in everything.
Right.
You want to get great like investment principle I've heard about. You want to buy low and
And
sell
so,
high.
yeah. That's how the rich became rich.
Exactly.
Right? And the poor stayed poor because they buy high, right? And then had to sell low.
Exactly. They sell it low when they're in a tricky position. And I just want to, I know you're in the real estate industry, right? So every time you hear about creating wealth, you hear about real estate, right?
Right.
And I just want you to give people some insight into the value of real estate, right? Because you talked about, say, for example, purchasing land close to the airport, right?
Right.
People don't realize that on average, say you have a residential property or like a rental property or rental, right? On average, and I know this is in the US,
Yeah.
that appreciates by about 3% every year,
Every year,
just naturally, right?
Right.
So you talk about opportunities like that, tapping into something such as real estate that not only holds its value but appreciates over time, right? Can you just give us a little insight into the value of real estate, but also why you decided to get into the real estate industry?
Well, I'll tell you, from an entrepreneurial point of view, I've always, before I became engaged in the real estate industry,
Yes, sir.
my respect for what real estate does was always great because if I have wealth, it is because I invested in real estate. I mean, I'm just straight up. I was on a Zoom call last week with these 5 young persons like your age, for instance, right?
Yes, sir.
And they were just asking me this. They're just brainstorming about this. And my advice to them was get in real estate, right? And I said to them, and take the opportunity to get out of Nassau and get in real estate in the Family Islands.
Yes, sir.
Right? And this, I'm telling you, I'm not saying it's everything that you do will appreciate, but I'm saying I think that statistically you will find out that it's a better investment. It's not a gamble. Right? And worst case scenario, you probably may break even if you make a buy there.
Yes, sir.
But you can get into other investments and lose everything.
And worst case scenario, you have land or you have the building that's
There you
over
go.
time.
Right.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So-
sir.
so-
And especially if you learn the principles of cash.
Yeah. So in Exuma now, I think where we have made our mistakes in the past is that we had no respect for real estate and what it does.
Yes, sir.
Right? Hey, we will put money and we will get this little business or that little business and that shop or that shop, right? Man, listen to me. If you go into retail, do you know how much work that is to make a living doing a retail thing? And I'm not saying retail is important.
Yes, sir.
We need Exuma market.
Yes,
we need
sir.
Smitty's. Yes, I mean,
Yes, sir.
we do, and we need the community shops. But if I'm a young person, that's not where I'm putting my money. I'm going to go and look at the opportunities. People have come to Exuma. Foreigners have come to Exuma, right? They've seen the beauty and the potential. And the first thing they did was that they bought up all of the prime real estate
Yes,
on
sir.
the beach, on the hill, and what have you. They purchased them, right? And at the time, the people who owned it, they thought they were, oh, I made a killing on that, right? They should have held on,
Short-term thinking.
right? So now, so those persons bought, right, when Exuma was emerging. They owned these properties, right? My brother bought a property for $30,000, I think, 20 years ago.
Yes, sir.
A year ago, he was offered $300,000 for it, and he refused to sell.
Yes, sir.
You understand me? And now, not every property would appreciate that way, but in principle, though, it will.
Yes, sir.
Maybe not as rapidly,
Yes, sir.
but if you make the sacrifice and buy, even if the property, you may say, man, this is an expensive property, it may take me 10 years to pay for this.
Yes, sir.
The appreciation of the property, I think, will grow much more quickly than the rate of interest that you're paying to pay for that.
Exactly.
And so that's how you know at the end of the day, will I be ahead? Right? So, man, and I'm in real estate in Exuma, and I try hard when good properties have come out, I'm trying to say to Bahamians, buy it. Buy it.
Yes, sir.
Because we need to own our own land, right? See, if foreigners own all of the Bahamas, that means really we only say we own it, but they have the papers to it.
Exactly.
And the one that's got the papers to it is the owner,
It's the owner.
right? So
Yes, sir.
that means you're gonna be renting from foreigners.
Exactly. And that's the case in a lot of these situations.
Of course.
We've sold our land and now we're renting from the people who we sold it to
Yes.
when we already
Yes.
had these
And
assets.
we have the assets.
And you know what's crazy, right? When you look at land and nations throughout the world, right? The one way they've enriched their people historically is by providing them with free land.
Yes.
Now, you know, for example, the United States, we were talking about it just because, you know, you studied over there, I studied over there, right? If you look at when they started giving away land in the West, now, I know they barred Black Americans from being able to get land and other races, right? But that's what really enriched a lot of the people. They were able to go there, get land,
Yes.
and be able to cultivate that land and produce.
Right.
At the end of the day, right, common sense should tell you, if the population in the world is increasing continually, right, and you only have a finite amount of land, that means that the land has to go up in value. Just as a basic principle, if you want to think of it that way, right? Logically, yes, sir. So that should tell you a lot, right? And then when you even do every study where they talk about, because they talk about the wealth gap between different races, right?
Yeah.
The one reason they pointed out that white Americans, not on average, have more wealth than a Black American is because they own their homes at greater rates.
The real estate investment is what established them. And at the end of the day, I know that there are schools of thought that says owning a home is not an investment, that owning a home is an expense. But the reality is, though, if you own the home appreciates if you have equity in the home.
Exactly. You
can
can
take
leverage
that equity and leverage it to do some other things.
Yes, sir.
If you don't have the home, you have equity in nothing, because when you pay rent, you're not building up equity.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so logically, if given the choice, I'm going to say to my son, buy the home,
Yes, sir.
right? In places like Exuma, though, I'll tell you, a big mistake that a lot of our people have made. Okay, so you're not from here. We have Exuma. It has, a significant amount of either commonage land or land that's owned like generation properties and
Yes,
those
sir.
kinds of things. So I think a lot of our people have fooled ourselves into saying, okay, I grew up in the settlement. I grew up in, let's say, in Steventon, for instance.
Yes, sir.
I ain't gonna live in no communist land. I want my own land, right?
Yes, sir.
Which is fine. But the wise thing should have done is this: build your own homestead in the commonage. The land that you buy outside shouldn't be the place that you buy to live in. That should be your investment.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It becomes your retirement home. It becomes the thing for your children's education, whatever it is, right? So instead of now leaving a free land that you have and buying a land where you have this long-term money and you're living in it, because now when you're living in it, you're not getting any return on
No,
it,
sir, not at
any
all.
income.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It may have appreciation in assets.
But you don't get the cash flow that you could have got from it.
And to move from here to there, you need cash flow.
Yes, sir.
Right? So, like, I was born in Mount Thompson, right? And I know a lot of our people moved out of Mount Thompson and they bought in Bahamas Sound and these things, and they built their homes, which is commendable.
Yes, sir.
Right? But my advice to them would have been, first, build your home in the commonage.
Yes, sir.
Buy your land, and when you build, make that an investment property, because now it funds your life, your whole thing.
And just look at the landscape of Exuma right now. You have people who are generating a lot of money off of having Airbnb units, right? And it's crazy because now that's putting the power in more the hands of the people who actually own the assets now. You pointed out a key thing. A lot of people haven't followed the plan you've laid out and own their land and develop their property. So now you have a lot of foreigners or second owners who might be renting out theirs and generating a lot of money from it. But
I'm in this business. I can tell you, and it discourages me because I think that it's also a function of government or policy.
yes, sir.
Right? I think in the Family Islands, Airbnb and those kinds of rental units should be the exclusive domains of locals.
Agreed.
They should not be competing with me,
Agreed.
right? And for a number of reasons. So now what they do is they come to a place like here and they get concessions, they get tax concessions. Yeah, they can bring in their stuff duty free and all those kinds of stuff, right?
Wow.
So now they're coming in, they're getting the advantage of tax breaks in Exuma.
Yes, sir.
They can buy their stuff, put it in a container, and ship it here duty free. I don't have that kind of income to do that.
Exactly.
So what do I have to do? I got to go to Davos. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I'm paying Davos price.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
on the first thing is they're getting materials cheaper. So I'm already disadvantaged. The second thing is, even if they wanted to get funding for it, the cost of money in the United States is much cheaper than the cost of money. For me to get a mortgage at RBC, I mean, it's 3-4 times what I can get if I went to Citibank. I mean, not, when they go to Citibank.
Yes,
so all around I'm being disadvantaged, and they come in. So now they can build a house for I don't know, probably. I don't know. I'm about to say half of what I can build it for, but even if it's not half,
yes, sir.
much cheaper than I can build it for.
I think that's ridiculous, right? Because we sometimes frame things as if they're advantageous to the people, the local people, right? But it's like people miss critical steps in thinking of just like the barriers to entry, like you said, having a certain amount of money to even be able to do these things.
Yeah.
Or other people are incentivized more. It's really ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. So, but anyway, so those things are in place, and I think so for Exuma to move though from where we are. So I think we need to. And have not even touched on the infrastructural issues.
Yes,
I'm just taking the whole mindset and policy issues that needs to be addressed.
Yes, sir.
In order for us to move. And I touched on a number of my presentations as well. Why these things aren't happening is because we as leaders continue to have a slave owners mentality, right?
For sure.
Where we've taken the whole British system, and they sent in their governors, right? And the whole British system was designed to exploit the local
That's it.
economy. It
That's
wasn't. It was never designed to grow the local economy. You know, I want you to understand that.
Exactly.
So Britain, they stood in London and all that. They had their governors here to collect the revenues and the profits, right?
Yes, sir.
And what did they do with those things? They went back to London,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
And they paid themselves, paid the government big salary, big lifestyle. Who paid for it? We paid for it.
Yes, sir.
So now, as black people, we take over our own country,
Yes, sir.
but we didn't change the management structure.
Which is illogical.
We didn't change anything. So all we're doing now is we're taking, we're replacing the white man with the black man, and the resources. So that's why Exuma isn't growing
Yes, sir.
as it should, because now
It's not getting the resources it
right,
needs.
the resources that are being generated in Exuma are being repatriated to Nassau.
Yes, sir. The kingdom.
So instead of getting to London, they're getting to Nassau.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's still not benefiting Exuma as it should.
I agree. I agree completely on that. And it's so crazy you touch on that, right? Because I read a book, Wealth of Nations. I was trying to learn some economics like yourself, so I read Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. You know, he's one of the founding fathers of the US, all that, right?
Yeah.
And he actually talked about it, how, like what you're talking about, how the system exploited so much. It was designed where the Americans, through slave labor, and of course, they were producing a lot of their revenue through agriculture, which is something we have to definitely tap into. It can be coupled with other things, but they were producing a lot of their revenue through agriculture, right? But what they noticed is that they were setting out so much to the British, but the British weren't providing this value to them to even incentivize them getting it. So I think that's very important. I read one article. I want to get the number right. I think you said Exuma produces about $80 million in revenue that year.
Yeah.
Or cents.
And to be fair to that number, I gave that number because in the audience was a government official who was refusing to give us the exact number.
Yes, sir.
And I was being mischievous.
Yes.
And I wanted them to come back and say that I was wrong. The number isn't 80. You know
Okay, great.
So the number isn't exact.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Right.
but the principle of what you're saying is exact.
Yes.
You're trying to say that why would we have someone produce and not be rewarded for what they produce?
Right.
That's really how the world should function. You should be rewarded based on your gifts and your value and what you give to the world. You give value to other people, so you should receive that back, in a certain way. And Exuma isn't getting his fair share.
And even from a government perspective, because I tend to think business-wise, but think about this, for instance. If I have a business, right, and if I have, let's say, 3 or 4 revenue streams in that business.
Yes, sir.
The revenue stream that is generating the most is where I'm going to put most of the activity.
Of course.
Because that's making me the most money.
It's the most logical.
Right. You understand me? So if I got a store, and it's selling a whole, and I'm making a bundle of money from selling grape juice, I'm going to invest more in grape juice.
Easily.
Right? Either more varied, more whatever, I'm bringing it in, because I'm going to get more money from grape juice.
Exactly.
So it doesn't make sense to say, I'm going to put the same amount of money in grape juice as opposed to putting the same amount of money in something like, orange juice.
Yes, sir.
If orange juice ain't selling.
It doesn't make sense.
So when you take a look at it, so when the government says that we have other islands to consider, it doesn't make sense to say I'm not going to treat Exuma differently than Auckland's.
Yes, sir.
Because Exuma is bringing more revenue in, so that Auckland's can be supported.
Exactly.
So that's the way it works,
Exactly.
Auckland's, and I don't like Auckland's must be like how Full Stop put little things to the counter there, not necessarily to make money, but to generate either people walking in or whatever it is. Some things that just cost leaders. You bring them in, you don't want to make money off it,
Yeah, so you just have it there in
You just
case
have it.
convenience, just to add to the experience a little bit.
Right. So now you put money in Auckland's, and you find out what are the things that, let's say, Auckland's can do, right? They got to have a select group of people who want to go to Auckland's. Maybe people who only want to do, I'm just saying, bird watching or something.
Yes, sir.
Like
Yes, sir.
Right? That's not a big market, but it may be a critical market.
Yes, sir.
And we can still make it so that Auckland's benefit. But if Exuma goes down, like when you drive, for me to get here today, right, I have to do road gymnastics to the road.
Yes, sir.
Right? Yes, I mean, right?
Yes, sir.
And in the night, like I pass a hole just now, I come from Georgia. In the night, if I drop in that hole, I don't know what happens.
Over.
Right.
I said the tire business is supposed to make plenty money over here.
So what should happen is, in principle, even if we bring in 50 million, I'm saying that if we are incentivized to have a certain portion of that 50 million reinvested in Exuma,
Yes, sir.
where the decisions are made, like NASA shouldn't make the decision, oh, we fix the road.
Not at all.
Could you imagine this? If the decision to fix the road was local and we have the resources, you think that road would look like that?
Not at all.
It wouldn't.
Not at all, because people would have more passion and care about what they're doing more, because they're incentivized to fix it faster, because they benefit from that. It's increased quality of life for everyone.
Right. And
Native.
it's a direct benefit.
Exactly. And that money is also here, and it can circulate between the people here.
There ain't no benefit to Ministry of Works and NASA. They don't join this road.
Not at all.
Right? So I'm saying, put the resources here and put the decision making here. Right? So then we know how to create, and I said this I think a couple of times as well. So we know what is priority. So now a person comes in, they give someone the contract to do the road in Exuma, and they are telling the person where to fix. Right?
Yes, sir.
Go from Georgetown to the airport, from the airport to Sandals, right? And so what they will do now is, without consideration for anything else, they're just going to do over the roads that are good, they're going to smooth over,
Yes,
right?
sir.
The road that's bad, they're going to smooth over. But I believe that if we made that decision here, we would maintain our road, and then we would expand. We'd say, you know what, man, we got $10 million left over. No, we're going to fix the boulevard, or we're going to fix this road,
Yes,
and we're going to go into areas, and every year now, we'll expand it so that we have more good roads.
Yes, sir.
So when I made a complaint to the Ministry of Works and saying to them, the boulevard, we have Exumians living on the boulevard. It is not a private subdivision. I don't care what your books say.
Yes, sir.
Your books are saying, oh, that's a private subdivision. It's not private, because the subdivision that the developers that did the subdivision all along, you allow them to sell all the properties, not put in the infrastructure, not put in all these things, and you allow them to leave, and there's no bond. So now it is the local people that are suffering.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because you made the mistake, you need to take ownership of the road.
That's exactly how it should work. I actually stay through that area right now, and it's crazy that people actually drive through those roads like it's a normal thing, and I'm like, this is.
They have no choice, but it is wrong. Right?
Yes,
I think it's a dereliction of government duty, because these are people who pay taxes.
Exactly.
Right? They don't pay less taxes than anybody else. To drive on those roads, they gotta pay taxes. Right? So the government should take the responsibility and take ownership of it.
Yes, sir. I
But,
agree.
but if the decision was local, though, we would make that decision.
I think you're touching on a very key point, right? So many stuff in this country can really advance, but it has to be decentralized. We have to allow local decision makers to make the decision. Oftentimes we have systems, right, where there are people making decisions and they don't have any understanding about the local environment they're making that decision in. And it's something to me. I know you're a man, economics, you're based on logic, you're based on things that make sense, right? You're a businessman, right? I analyze things and I'm like, why do we keep doing the same thing over and over and over if it doesn't make sense and it doesn't create the best result and it doesn't have the most productive impact on the place we're trying to advance?
Well, and I can tell you why, if we go to that point. And fundamentally, the reason is because once we get in power, we are not motivated to change the archaic system that empowered. So it's almost as if we sat back and we criticized them, but really in the back of our mind was, I will be like them.
Yeah, I can't wait to get there so I can take advantage of that.
Right, so I can do what they did.
Yes, sir.
As opposed to say, because to decentralize the system means now that if you're the minister, for instance, it's like you're taking away some of your powers, right? And as a politician, it's I guess an empowering thing to be able to come to Exuma and say to you, hey, if you all are good children, I can give you all something.
Yes, sir. Yes,
This
sir.
is our money, you know.
Yes, sir.
It's our money.
Yes, sir. I want to touch right on where you are right now, right? So I just have a question, and it may just be something that's been in my head a little bit, right? But do you think certain actions by the government per se in Nassau are done to ensure that certain strength doesn't get to the family island, so they build up themselves and have more say in the things that go on?
I'm not just thinking that. I know stuff for certainty. And as I said, we started a meeting with the cabinet minister, and he became, if it were possible for him to turn red, he would have turned red with anger, right? But he was black, so I couldn't see the redness. but the reality is, yes, because if they do, now we are not beholden to them, right? And it cannot be used as some election ploy. I don't think for a moment that I'm talking about this government.
Yes, sir. No,
I'm
no, no, no.
not-
And
not
me
talking
either. I'm
about-
talking about in general.
Because the system that is here now
Yes, sir.
is the same system that was there under the PLP government.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
So it didn't. The FNM government did not create this system.
Exactly. And I think that's what people need to do a lot more, Stop trying to so much focus on the individuals, the individuals play a part, right? But focus on the actual system and what results the system are producing. Because if you put this person in that same system and they're not trying to change that system to a better method of operation, you still get the same results.
The same
results, just different faces.
But we are so inclined to think political party. I made that statement at the Exuma business outlook, I think it was last year, and the very next day someone came into my office and said to me, how come I didn't say this when the PLP was in power, right? And so that's how silly we are. And instead of analyzing the merits of what it is,
yes, sir.
we're trying to consider, you're knocking. But listen to me. If you are an FNM,
yes, sir.
And I say that what they're doing is not good for Exuma, it's not good for you.
Exactly.
And
that's my opinion on all of these situations, right? I'm like, why would you try to do something that doesn't benefit another part of the Bahamas if we're all in the Bahamas?
There you go.
We're all in the Bahamas, so everyone's quality of life is going to be increased by you doing things that benefit the Bahamas.
Right.
So why don't we do it? It's such a backwards method of thinking, and I just really need us to evolve from it because it's boring. For me and a lot of other people, it's boring.
Well, it's going to take, I think, people like you to really, and I think with succeeding as we get younger as a nation, I think what's going to happen is people are now going to be more critical in their thinking and saying, let's look at the policy, let's look at its impact locally.
Yes, sir.
Again, I'm big on local.
Yes, sir.
Local governance, I'm going to preach that until I can't preach it anymore. Local governance, right? And the thing that came is someone said to me, well, that's a lot of money. That's what I said to him. Can you imagine putting $40 million for these local people so they get teeth? So I said, well, the central government, they are controlling a lot more, right? So what happened? Only local people's teeth? I said, so I think it's insulting.
Very insulting.
That you think that local people will steal, but central government wouldn't steal, right? So if we have faith in the people who are placed in governance in us, we should have the same faith and confidence locally.
Definitely.
And you know what makes it better? You know why there'll be less graft? Because now we have local eyesight on it.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
So who are the eyeballs in central government? Because when they spend it, you don't even know.
You don't know.
You don't know how. You see a generalized budget that's given without any
nothing goes in depth.
So you can, and every money that we give goes into a central pot, which is as archaic as they can come.
Exactly.
In local government, we can determine this is for capital development.
Greater transparency, greater accountability.
This is for road work. This is for this. This is for salaries.
Exactly.
So we can know that to the T. And if something goes wrong,
you know who to find.
We know.
Exactly.
Right? So I think that this would make for a more efficient use of our revenues than the system that we do.
I agree. I just want to touch on something, right? Because we're talking about things that need to be in place. We're talking about economic activities, right? And I just want you to touch for a little bit on how do you feel this whole COVID-19 stuff has affected Exuma economically, and also based on how you feel, when do you think Exuma will get back to a sense of normalcy?
You know, in the beginning, back in April, someone from the Tribune asked me that question, and at that time, we didn't know all that we knew then.
Yes, sir.
Initially, when we had things like the lockdown, you were sure, okay, in the next month, we're going to be locked down. This is going to be a rough month or two.
Yes, sir.
Right? Or what have you. Since then, so much has happened, and we know it's not so. But even then, I think about a month later, I said to them, I really don't think that we are going to even begin to improve until January.
Yes, sir.
And I'm telling you now, I was wrong even then.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So just go to show. So if you ask me, I'm saying that maybe in the summer of next year,
yes, sir.
we can, I guess, we'll have a better handle on it, and we can understand the impact of the protocols that's in place. And I think we'll get accustomed to living a certain way.
Yes, sir.
Right? Not that COVID would have disappeared, but we would have learned how to do business in COVID.
Exactly,
Right?
as we should.
Right. And it really shouldn't have taken us this long. I think by now we should be better. There should have been better protocols in place to manage not us staying home, but how do we operate our businesses in the midst of this and still be safe?
Exactly.
And having said that, I don't like to be negative because I think COVID has given us, and again, I'm focusing on Exuma because this is my economy, this is where I
Yes, sir.
live, right?
Yes, sir. And that's what we want.
Right.
We on the
Right.
98.3 FM The Blaze right now.
Right.
Yes, sir.
But COVID has given Exuma, I think, some wonderful learning opportunities, right? It has shown us that, we can change the way we do business and still make money,
Yes, sir.
right? We don't have to be so reliant on what I call, again, on last week with my group, this little investment group, I told them that if you want to go into an area of business, I think, today, if I were to have to start over now, I'm old now, so there's no starting over for me.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's all as you think.
I-
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But I'd say to myself, what are the opportunities what have we learned from this, that how we can do business without certain standard overhead, for
Yes, sir.
instance, right? Like if I were to start a radio station, for instance, today,
Yes, sir.
I wouldn't invest in this building
Yes, sir.
because I think that I have learned that I can do this business without this infrastructure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I've managed businesses and literally I built a huge office building in Nassau to do my business back in the day when
Yes,
that's
sir.
what worked. And
And that's a standard.
that's the standard, right?
Yes, sir.
So you build the building, if you have 15 or 20 employees, they all come to work, they come at the same time, and they work until at least 5 o'clock or
Yes,
until
sir.
whatever. Today, though, I think what's been demonstrated is that the capital investment is not necessarily the way to go, because that's a lot of investment,
Yes, sir.
right?
You have to ensure you're getting the benefit from that investment.
Right. So now today, if I had, like I have my building in Georgetown, for instance, I thought about this, and so I just repurposed it, right? If I have real estate, you know that if you have 5 real estate agents, there is no benefit for those real estate agents to have to come into the office and all of them have an office and sit down. What's the point,
No, sir.
right? Because business isn't done in the office. We're not selling widgets.
Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly. So if we are selling if we're selling ideas, if we are selling visuals and all kind of stuff, you could do that from anywhere.
Yes, sir.
Anywhere.
Yes, sir.
And if they want to have a place to come, okay, then let's have a little conference room. Right? It's available to everybody. We just have appointments that you can use it from this time to this
Mr.
time.
Rolle, you're so on point. You're so
Yeah.
on point. And I think that a lot of people need to be able to evolve their thoughts more to actually advance in this world we have now.
Yeah.
But by you having those thoughts right now, you'll be able to push what you're doing way forward, or way further.
Yes.
Like we have so much ways in technology. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I do marketing work, right?
Right.
So people don't realize like how you can really tap into the digital assets such as like social media and stuff
Right,
like that
right.
and promote what you're doing, take some
Right.
nice pictures. You don't have to be in the office, you can do it anywhere like you
You
said.
can do it from anywhere. But the hesitancy, though, is from those who, you see, we are seduced by being called the boss.
Yes, sir.
So if I'm a mid-manager of a place, right, I like the idea of me having my office and all of my employees out there, I can look at them, right?
Yes, sir.
I like having the idea that I can boss them around.
Yes, sir.
I like having the power to say to them, you're late.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
because you work all your life to get to that place where you are bossing people.
Yes, sir.
But the point I think if you want to really, COVID has made us aware, even in the government sector, that you can be given assignment. This is your job. The good manager now finds a way to ensure that the work is coming in,
Yes,
that
sir.
it is proper. All I should be concerned about is, are you doing the work?
Produce results.
Are you producing?
Yes, sir.
You don't have to produce it. If you're gonna produce in your 90, I don't care.
Exactly. But you produce. And,
But you
and
produce.
that's the same that's the same perspective I have with so many things, right? It's like we focus so much on the nitty-gritty and stuff and so much on emotional things that feed our emotions, like our
Right.
ego and stuff like that.
Right.
But at at the end of the day, you could be feeding your ego and producing way inferior results. Let's produce some great results. Let's get the work done. Let's be productive. Let's push it forward.
And that's what's happening. So when we talk about the impact of COVID on the Exuma economy,
Yes, sir.
yeah, I'm going to say that our economy suffered greatly, and it suffered greatly because we were not equipped, either both infrastructurally
Yes, sir.
and with the managerial ideas to say, how do we run this company without being physically together?
Yes, sir.
Right? How do we do this? Or how do we manage our educational system? How do we have school, right? Without the children being in the classroom. You know, I think we've gotten to the point now where COVID has given us an opportunity where we ought to intentionally structure our educational system intentionally, because in the long run, it's going to reduce the cost.
Yes, sir.
Because teachers are expensive,
Yes, sir.
right? It does not no longer mandate that the government invest millions of dollars in schools.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
We can repurpose and refurbish and maintain the ones we do have, and still educate probably twice as many students.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Just by doing it differently.
Yes, sir. It's reducing your expenses and increasing your productivity.
Right. So just develop this system to make it happen. So even though I think in this year, businesses have suffered greatly, my underlying lesson from it is, I think it puts us in a position where we can now be creative and not have to go back to the old system.
Yes, sir.
And we can make more money, right, with less overhead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know,
Yes, sir.
the opportunity is there.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
whether we take advantage of it, but some people will,
Yes, sir.
right? And even like tell you, and I don't know why you see like a grocery store and places like Davos and those kinds of places, right? If I were them, I would develop an online platform that allows me as because now when I capture you, if I got you as a customer
Yes, sir.
and you send me your order to me, I got you, you know,
Yes, sir.
right? You may not want to drive from Steventon to Georgetown.
Yes, sir.
But if I have this so developed that even if they do drive, that when they come to pick it up, they don't have to, money. I just give them a package.
People will pay for that convenience.
It's already paid for. You pay for it. I put a package in. As I said, even if you drive to Georgetown, you only have to go and stand in the line.
Yes, sir.
Or if you don't want to, I can have a daily run to the west. I drop yours off, but I drop other people. So I'm developing now a market. A loyalty market,
Yes, sir.
right? Because, well, listen, if people can do it for me, I can sit and work, and I got to worry about wasting my time doing this and doing that.
Exactly. It's crazy, right? Because there's something in marketing called positioning, right? And what it really is how you fit on top of someone's mind, right?
Right.
So, for example, if I think an e-commerce platform for buying something, I'm probably thinking Amazon. If I think of dark soda, I'm probably thinking Coke.
Right.
It's the reason you think of those things, right? Because they have developed brand loyalty with you. What you're talking about right there is a great business principle. People focus so much on the short term that they don't think of things they could do that could add value to their customer experience and be able to give them benefits in the long term. So that's
and it's all about adding value, you know.
That's
it's
excellent.
all about adding value. And when you add value, the mind is a funny thing. Then price becomes secondary.
Exactly.
Right? I'm saying price becomes secondary.
For sure.
Do you know the amount of money people pay for certain things that they said I go this place? It ain't because it's the cheapest, right? They become loyal to it, right? And that's what they think about when they think of that product or whatever. And so they just buy it.
That's it.
I buy Welch's grape juice because that's what my wife wants, right?
That's it.
Right? And if you think about it, it's the most expensive grape
Yeah,
juice.
so,
I don't know if it's the best.
But you can get it.
I get it anyway.
Yeah,
And but price ain't a factor.
No, sir. You don't think of that because you think of the value and you think of what it really does for you.
Right.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Mr. Rolle, this has been an excellent discussion. I know you're a very busy man, so I really appreciate you for giving me this time. If there's anything else you wanna,
I'm sorry for just just spewing forth all of these things. I don't know if I answered all of your questions.
Sir, you answered everything.
Yeah.
This was even greater than I thought it would be. You provided a lot of value, and I think when our viewers are able to tune into Talking Business and really listen to this, they'll hear a lot of business principles. A lot of them are really direct with certain stuff, and then
Right.
underlying principles you can get. And let's just be frank. A lot of these business principles, they can be transferred into your life and
Of
how you go
course.
about everything.
Right.
So even if you're not a business owner, you can be able to gain value from this.
Yeah, right.
And if you're an Exumian, you'll gain a lot of value from hearing about these things and probably even find an idea that you can tap into to provide value to the marketplace.
All right. Well, let me conclude with this. You answered this. So we need to be able to be engaged. We need to find a way to get Exumians to become engaged.
Yes, sir.
We are too disconnected from the decisions that are being made that's impacting our lives.
Yes, sir.
Like for instance, there has to be some kind of outcry about the services that we're getting, whether it's the internet and one of these days, I'm going to talk about infrastructure development.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I
love that.
We deserve better.
Yes, sir.
We need to find a way to hold our utility companies, like BPL, for instance, and the service that they give. But no one, we don't have a voice, we're not complaining, right? I almost use the word, but we complain about ourselves,
Yes,
right? Without really saying, let's hold them accountable.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, we have a cadre of BPL employees. From a management point of view, do they have a system of maintenance so that when the weather is good and all this stuff, in preparations? I drive sometimes, and I've seen poles that have been compromised from the last storm, still compromised to this day.
That's probably been a while.
Right. So I they put the thing. But my thing is, and there are areas where there's still trees that if we have a little bit of wind, it'll fall, and now it'll cause all of us to be out of service.
Why not do preventive maintenance?
Right. When these are things that should that should be on the thing, right? And if they do have a system, explain it to us, because at the end of the day, we are paying for this.
Yes, sir.
It ain't free.
Yes, sir.
Right? So I think as Exumans, we need to find a way to get involved in something, in some entity.
Yes,
right?
sir.
I'm inviting you, I'm going to encourage you, be a part of the chamber.
I
right?
will.
Join
Yes,
the
sir.
chamber. I tell people all the time, if you've been on shows and what have you, the chamber is not about making money as a chamber. It's not that we have a lot of money. We don't have money like that, right? Our fees are minimal, right? Like for you, for instance, I think it's $200 a year. And we give
That's
you
great.
and we give you the option. If you don't have the $200, you won't pay $50 a quarter. That's fine. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So it's our thing is we just want to make sure that we become engaged and we have voices and we have people who are prepared to go on the limb, because our group that runs the chamber is really, really small.
Yes, sir.
If we have an event, we can fill up the Roman sandals. People will come. But that's the only time we see them.
Yes, sir.
They're not engaged, they don't voice their opinion. Right? We have a bank that's leading Exuma, right? There is no way in the world that Exuma as an economy, right? You can't say that we want to attract businesses, we want to attract fraud, we want to attract all of these things to Exuma. We can't attract them with one bank.
Exactly.
And with a bank whose interest, which is Royal Bank, and I'm saying this publicly, whose interest is not the development of small person. Royal Bank has no interest in appealing to the construction worker. You understand me?
Yes, sir.
And all that. Or the small person, right? Their business model is really focused on the larger commercial and the larger investors.
Yes, sir.
So what happens to the majority of people on the island there? Right? How do they get their banking needs done? Right? How do we pause the government, right, to incentivize a local bank? And I think them days of having foreign banks come here are over.
Yes, sir.
Right? We ought to have a what's the name of bank? Commonwealth Bank.
Yes, sir.
Or even if it's whatever, Fidelity or somebody. Make it local,
Yes, sir.
right? And incentivize them to come. Give them consideration. Right? Give them VAT consideration for the business they're doing, and so to incentivize them to be here.
Yes, sir.
Because when World Bank and all the other foreign banks come, every single year, they are given tax consideration, right, for being in the Bahamas.
Yes, sir.
Not only do we give them tax consideration, the government puts all its money in Royal Bank. It's the government bank. It's stupid, right, that we got to incentivize them,
But not our own.
but not our own.
Illogical. illogical.
So those are discussions we can have the next time.
Yes, sir.
alright?
Yes, sir. I can't wait to have you back on, Mr. Rolle. This has been a great discussion.
My
I
pleasure,
really
sir.
appreciate you for this, sir.